Yesterday in class, we talked about using the bottoms-up method on factoring quadratic formulas and quadratic equations. So as we look at these first ones, we want to start by remembering what our bottoms-up formula is. We're going to take standard form, our a, b, and c values. We take our a value, we multiply by c. That goes on the top of our big X. The b value goes on the bottom. Remember, we're looking for two numbers that are going to multiply to give me the top number and add to give me the bottom. I'm going to take each of my numbers and divide, then I can find my factors and divide them by the a value, and then our factors will go on top. In order to write our factors, remember we had to use something called the swing method. So let's just jump into this and go through this warm-up. A will equal 10, my b value here is 17, and my c value is 6. So as I put that into the bottoms up, 10 times 6 goes at the top, while 17 will go on the bottom. Remember, I'm dividing each factor by 10. And if you're having a hard time, you can make a factor list. Remember that 10 times 6 is 60. So we have 1 and 60, 2 and 30, 3 and 20, 4 and 15, 5 and 12, 6 and 10, 11 won't go, and then we repeat. So I'm looking for two numbers out of this list that will add up to be 17, which we find to be 5 and 12. As we get ready to write our factors, we need to reduce if possible. So is there a number that'll go both into 5 and 10? Yes, there is, and that number is 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. So that'll reduce to 1/2. On the other side, 12 and 10, there's a number that'll go into both 12 and 10, and that number's 2. So 2 will go into 12 6 times, and 2 will go into 10 5 times. Remember the swing method as we get ready to write our factored form. The 2 is going to swing back and become the coefficient with my variable, so 2x, while the 1 swings forward to become my constant, so 2x plus 1. The 5 will swing back to become the coefficient of the variable, while the 6 swings forward to become the constant. So my final answer for factored form for number 1 is 2x plus 1 times 5x plus 6. On number 2, we're going to do the exact same thing. My a value is 10, my b value is 7, my c value is negative 6. So as I put this into the big bottoms up, 10 times negative 6 at the top will be 7 at the bottom. Remember, each factor needs to be divided by 10. As I'm getting ready to do this, 10 times negative 6 is negative 60. Because my top number is negative, remember I'm going to need one positive and one negative factor. So I go through my factor list again, and now because I have one positive and one negative, remember that we're going to be doing some subtracting. So when I subtract these numbers, remember I want them to equal 7. That means I'm going to be looking right here at 5 and 12. Because 7 is a positive number, the 12 needs to be positive, and the 5 needs to be negative. When I do this, I can remember that when I add, same signs add and keep, different signs subtract, keep the sign of the larger number, and you'll be exact. When my larger number was 7, or the number that I kept was a positive 7, therefore my larger number 12 needs to be positive. At this point, I do need to reduce where possible. So again, 2 will go into 12 and 10, which will reduce to 6 over 5. And 5 will go into 5 and 10, which reduces to negative 1 over 2. My 5 swings back to become the coefficient with the variable, where my 6 swings forward to become the constant. So 5x plus 6 is one factor. My 2 swings back to be the coefficient of the variable, so 2x. And my negative 1 swings forward to be the constant. So my two factors here are 5x plus 6 and 2x plus 1. As we get ready to look at the last one here, we're going to identify our a, b, and c values. So a is equal to 6, b is equal to negative 5, c is equal to negative 21. Put them into the bottoms up method, so 6 times negative 21 goes on the top, while negative 5 goes on the bottom. each factor is going to be divided by 6. So 6 times negative 21 gives me negative 126. Definitely going to make a factor list here. We got 1 and 126. Now remember, because my top number is negative, both of my factors will not be the same. So one will be positive, one will be negative. And we're going to subtract in our list. We have 2 and 63, 3 and 42. 4 will not go evenly, 5 will not go evenly, 6 and 21. 7 will go, so 7 will go 18 times. Excuse me. 8 will not go evenly. 9 will go evenly. So that'll be 9 and 14. I can stop right there because I know when I subtract two numbers, 9 minus 14 is going to equal 5. Now, we remember that because I kept a negative sign, the larger number needs to be negative. So I have 9 and negative 14. Remember, at this step, what we want to do is simplify where possible. So a number that'll go both into 9 and 6 is 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Then I flip over and look at 6 and 14. A number that'll go both into 6 and 14 is 2. So negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7. 6 divided by 2 is 3. At this point, I'm ready to use my swing method. So 2 swings back to become the coefficient of the variable, while 3 swings forward to be a constant, positive 3. 3 will swing back to be the coefficient of the variable, so 3x, while negative 7 swings forward to be my constant. So my factors here are 2x plus 3 and 3x minus 7. More review for us is to look at using the completing the square method, so we don't want to forget about that. Remember, the first thing we want to do when we complete the square is use our value that we're going to use to fill in. So we're going to do plus blank, and then we just move our plus 18 off to the side. We want to look at our b value. In this case, b is negative 8. So when we do b divided by 2, that's negative 8 divided by 2, which is negative 4. Then we also want to make sure that we know that negative 4 squared is 16. We're going to use that to fill in and take things out where we need to here. So we have x squared minus 8x plus our blank plus 18, and then we need to take out something as well. So remember, I'm going to put in negative 4 squared, and I like to leave the negative 4 there so when we condense it, it becomes easy to see what that factor will be. And then I'm going to take out what negative 4 squared is, which is 16. Then we can just write our answer in condensed form. Remember, this will give us vertex form, so x minus 4 squared, and then we just put into our calculator what 18 minus 16 is, which is positive 2. As we get ready to look at the next one, I notice that my a value is no longer 1. So same process. I'm going to put something in, and then I'll take something out later. I'm going to move my 14 to the right outside of the parentheses. At this step, though, I do need to factor out the 3 because, again, my a value is not 1. The goal is to make it 1. So 3 divided by 3 is just 1 for x squared. Negative 12 divided by 3 is negative 4x. Still going to put something in, and then when I get ready to take it out, we'll do that at the end. So my b value in this case now is negative 4. So b divided by 2 is negative 4 divided by 2, which is negative 2. And then we need to square that, so negative 2 squared is 4. We get ready to put it in. Remember, I cannot forget about the 3 that was already on the outside. So I'm going to put in my negative 2 squared. But when I get ready to take out the 4, I can't forget that the 4 is also being multiplied by 3. This number is being distributed. When I get ready to write my condensed form, all I need to do, 3 times x, and in this case it's going to be minus 2 squared. And then in your calculator type in 14 minus 4 times 3. So 14 minus 12, which gives me positive 2. As we look at the last one here, again, we're going to take our values, negative 2x squared plus 4x. We're going to put something in, and then we're going to move our minus 1 to the outside. My a value is not equal to 1, so I need to factor out that negative 2. Negative 2 divided by 2 is 1, so 1x squared. 4 divided by negative 2 is going to give me negative 2x. Again, I'm going to put something in, and then eventually I'm going to take something out as well. So I just want to leave that blank. Now I can look at my b value, which is negative 2. My b divided by 2, which will be negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. And then negative 1 squared, which will give me positive 1. Now what I'm going to do here is put in my values. So we have negative 2 times x squared minus 2x. What I'm going to put in is my negative 1 squared. And then remember, I need to take out that same value, but when I take it out, I have to make sure that I multiply it by negative 2. So again, negative 1 squared is 1. That's where this value came from, but I have to distribute the negative 2 as well. When I get ready to condense, negative 2 times x minus 1 squared, and then I'm going to put into the calculator negative 1 minus negative 2 times 1. So this will be like negative 1 minus negative 2. So a keep, change problem turns it into a positive 1. Now what I want you to do is work through these problems. This is just like the bottoms up, where we're just trying to find numbers that go together, that will multiply to give me the top every time, and those same two numbers add to give me the bottom number. So all I'm trying to do is find the values that work here. So pause your video and take a moment to do this. All right, so take a moment and check your work here to make sure you got the right things. You can pause the video if you need to in order to check your work. There's a couple things that I want us to remember as we're working through these, and this is just some hints that goes along with our signs. So, in our bottoms up, if my top number is positive and my bottom number is positive, that means that both of my factors need to also be positive. If my top number is positive but my bottom number is negative, remember a negative times a negative equals a positive, and a negative plus a negative stays negative. So both of my factors here will be negative. Where things start to get a little more tricky, it's like on number 9, when my top number is negative, this is where I have to be careful. If my top is negative and my bottom's positive, remember that each of my signs need to be different, so one negative, one positive. If my bottom number is positive, then my larger number needs to also be positive. Same signs add and keep, different signs subtract. Keep the sign of the larger number, then you'll be exact. So my smaller number, whatever that is, needs to be negative, while my larger number needs to be positive. And then also, if my top is negative and my bottom is negative, same type deal, gotta have opposite signs, but now my bigger number becomes the negative and my smaller number becomes the spot positive. So what I want you to do is practice now these 3 problems using our bottoms up method from yesterday. So A equals 1, B equals 8, C equals 15. So I put it in the bottoms up, 1 times 15 at the top, 8 at the bottom, with each factor being divided by 1. This becomes a lot easier because 1 times 15 is just 15, and I can easily say, oh, well, 5 times 3 is 15, and 5 plus 3 is 8. Also, this becomes easier because when I get ready to use the swing method, I don't have to worry about reducing, because it just becomes x plus 5 and x plus 3. For number 2, my A value is 1, my B value is negative 8, and my C value is 7. So when I plug this into my bottoms up, 1 times 7 at the top, negative 8 at the bottom. And remember, each factor is divided by my a value, which in this case is just 1. Well, 7 times 1 is 7, but I notice if we go back to our hints that we just learned, that the top number is positive, the bottom number is negative. That means both of my signs need to be negative, which gives me a 7 and 1. Negative 7 times negative 1 equals positive 7. Negative 7 plus negative 1 equals negative 8. So that's x minus 7 as one factor and x minus 1 as the other. Finally, here for 3, a will equal 1, b will equal negative 2, c will equal negative 15. So we have 1 times negative 15 at the top with negative 2 at the bottom, and each factor is going to be divided by 1. Well, 1 times negative 15 is negative 15. We go back to our hints. Because my top number is negative, that means one factor will be positive, one factor will be negative. I've kept a negative sign in the bottom, which means whatever larger factor I pick here needs to be negative. And if I need to make a factor list, we got 1 and 15, 3 and 5, and then 5 and 3, so we're good. So my larger number, I know I need to subtract, needs to be negative, so that becomes a 5. My smaller number is positive, so this becomes x plus 3 and x minus 5. It does not matter which side you put each of these numbers on, as long as your signs go with the right one. So as we look at our next page, when factoring the leading coefficient equal to 1, we should notice that the numbers that we use in our x factor as factors end up being the two numbers in each of our factored form. Okay? So that the two side numbers that we use in our x factor end up being the two numbers in each of our factors. So as a shortcut, only when the a value is equal to 1, we can simply determine what two numbers multiply to give us the c value, but either add or subtract depending on what we're looking at to give us the b value. Then we write them as our two linear factors. Main thing that we need to remember here is that factors are going to be written as two polynomials that can be multiplied together. So take a moment to practice 4, 5, 6, and 7. Pause your video, work these out. Hopefully you've noticed in each of these that a is equal 1, and number 4, b is equal to 21, and c is equal to 90. So 1 times 90 at the top, 21 at the bottom, each factor divided by 1. So I'm going to make my factor list. We got 190, 2 and 45, 3 and 30. 4 will not go evenly. 5 and 18. 6 and 15. And I can stop right there because I know my numbers that add up need to equal 21. So 6 and 15. X plus 6, x plus 15. For number 5, my a value is equal to 1. My b value is equal to negative 15, and my c value is equal to 50. So I put it my bottoms up. 1 times 50 at the top, negative 15 at the bottom. So each factor needs to be divided by 1. So looking for factors, I know that my top is positive 50, my bottom is negative. Hopefully you got negative 10 and negative 5. So x minus 10 and x minus 5. At this point, make sure you're checking everything. Remove your last page from your notes. And then also, which would be this page, you will turn this in for a grade.